Alright, now that we have the new high-tech 8-inch slant lamp set up in the shop, I'm going to take some time to break it in. I get a piece of potch, which is just opal that doesn't have any color in it, and then I cut a cabochon out of it, making sure to use the full face of the laps just to make sure that if there's any cross-contamination that happened whenever I was setting the machine up, or any high diamonds, that we wear those down and get the wheels nice and even so that we can cut perfect cabochons out of them. If you didn't see the unboxing video and you'd like to see that, I'll put a link up here so that you can check that out if you're interested in how the machine shows up and what it looks like when we take it out of the box and how to set it up. Otherwise, stick around and I'll show you the process of me breaking this machine in. We start with filling up the reservoir here. 6. Sometimes the water doesn't want to start immediately, so if you point the hose down, the water will start, and then you can bring it back up to the middle of the wheel and it'll start flowing then. See the water flow. If you look really carefully, you can see chips flying all over the place. This 180 grit wheel is extremely coarse. Yeah, definitely wear your glasses when cutting with this wheel. My 100 grit centered wheel on my arbor doesn't eat opal this fast. The equivalent might be, I don't know, 60 grit or something. Alright, this is just so that I get a feel for this thing. I'll get one of my little templates. And put a circle on there. It does cut faster than I assumed it would. Pretty interesting. When you're cutting to a line like this, especially on a flat lap or any other machine really, you always need to make sure that you're not undercutting your line, right? So the cut, you'll see that I'm angling it up towards the center of the machine so that the cut is actually flaring out in the bottom. You can fix that in the next step. Just make sure you don't undercut your line. If you do, you'll never get your shaping right. Now that I've cut to that line, this is the part where I'm evening out the sides, that the sides are perpendicular with the face. I flared it out when I was cutting so I wouldn't undercut the line, and this particular part is where I'm taking that flaring and making it perpendicular to the bottom of the stone. Now I want to put this stone on a dot to get the shaping just right. I'll put a little UV glue on there, center it, and then get the light to lock it in. Once it's nice and centered, this is a UV light. The UV light shines up through the glass top and locks the stone in. When you're shaping this stone on these metal discs, you always want to go back to your templates and just double check, make sure that you're keeping to the lines. It's probably enough shaping with this rough wheel. We're going to move on to the next now. Slow this bad boy down. Now we put on the 325 grit smoothing disc. Alright, one of the first things I'm noticing here with this 325 pad is that if you're used to cutting on an arbor and you've got like a 325 Nova, that Nova will still cut. I like to differentiate between cutting and polishing. Cutting, I think, is more of a shaping a stone, whereas polishing, you're not really removing much. You're just, refining the scratches more and more so that it becomes polished. This brown disc, if it was a Nova, you could still shape with it, but this pad doesn't do much shaping. It really just starts to remove the scratches from the 180 grit wheel before it. Notice this side's coming up here, so I'm going to slow it down and pop it off and see what the issue is here. Maybe a lot of online feedback says that people have had issues with this guard and the clips not sticking right. Most people say that you can just get some double-sided Gorilla Tape and use it on these clips to fasten them back to the side of the machine. Now we put on the 600 grit Reds Diamond Smoothing Disc. Somebody asked me about the sound running whenever you're cutting. This is the loudest pad, and it's running like 79 decibels, so inside a car or maybe a vacuum cleaner. When you're polishing like this, you always want to make sure to keep the opal spinning around, right? So spinning around and moving around so that you don't create any facets. Now we go to the 1200 blue diamond smoothing disc. Pre-polish is done now. We switch over to the felt and get it charged with some cerium. I'm going to charge this wheel now. Just getting some cerium oxide, a little bit of water and making a slurry. Just mix it around. Now, contrary to popular belief, you do not need tablespoons and tablespoons of cerium oxide in order to get a great polish on your opal. All you need is just a little bit to charge the pad up and a little bit of water so that you can get the chemical, mechanical action from the cerium oxide working. That's enough. The stone off of the top now. I'm going to see what I can do about cutting the back of this thing. Okay, start the water running again. So this is where I started running into some problems. This 325 brown diamond smoothing disc is not a cutting disc. It doesn't even cut enough for me to cut the back facets off of this stone. So I think the brown wheel is not really good at shaping, so what I think the best way to shape the back of the stone is probably to get the 180 and turn it on really slow, like a 1, and that'll allow me to take the facets out of the back of this. Alright, so I finished cutting this piece of potch, and first impressions are really good. This is a really nice little flat lap. You'd think whenever you look at it that it would be underpowered, but I didn't find that to be the case at all. You know, cutting the hard disc on a 6 was quite aggressive, especially for, you know, a nice piece of little Cooper PD opal. If you were cutting agates or something, you know, a lot harder, that's probably nice to have that high speed. So first takeaway is I probably cut it with the hard disc going slower. And I found that the polishing discs and the felt, it works a lot better to get the speed up to 6 on them because, you know, if you're polishing, you know, the speed actually helps you. Whereas if you're shaping, as you do with the metal disc, it's probably a bit much. If you're not used to working with a flat lap, it is good to understand that the further out you get on the flat lap, the faster it's spinning. The linear speed on this is like 3,400 revolutions per minute, but that's the speed probably at the end of the disc. It may be 1,700 in the middle, and as you go in, the speed decreases. So you can use that to your advantage when you're cutting, because when you want it to cut more aggressively, you cut towards the outer side of the disc, and whenever you want it to make more refined cuts or don't polish quite as aggressively, you can cut towards the inside here and use the differential speed of the disc based on where you are on that disc. One of the things that I did notice is that the jump from the metal disc to the first brown pad is a pretty big jump, and so I'm going to probably cut, before I start cutting some more opal, I'm going to cut some more potch to see if I can get a better transition between the metal disc and the brown one. As it is, I got a really great polish on this. I used cerium oxide instead of the diamond paste that they included, because I have a lot of cerium oxide here in the shop. I like using it with opal, and I wanted to charge the pad with only one thing, so I probably won't use the diamond paste. And if you're only cutting opal, specifically Lightning Ridge or Cooper PD opal or Andamuco meant to be, then I suggest using cerium, because it's just the best thing, and it's easier to get, easier to keep into supply, and easier to apply than the diamond paste would be. I thought it would be harder to switch the pads in and out. It's actually really quite easy. You know, it takes like 20 seconds or something like that. And so that was a bit of a surprise. I thought that was going to be more of an issue, and it's actually really easy to switch the plates out. Yeah, so first impressions, great little machine. I'm going to use this a whole bunch more around here. I'm going to try to figure out how to get the transition between the metal plate and the brown a little bit smoother, because this piece I have, it did take a really nice polish, but you can tell that there's some divots in there that were caused by the plate, the 180 plate, that I wasn't able to remove with the brown pad. And so I'm going to play around with that and see if I can get that a bit smoother. So I played with this for a few more hours, and I figured out that there was no real good way to get from the 180 hard disk to the 325 soft one. So I'm going to try a couple of different things. I've jumped on the website and I got a 220 grit soft one, and I also got a 260 grit electroplated diamond lap. I'm going to try both of them and see which of those transitions works best specifically for cutting opal. The electroplated laps come pre-mounted on acrylic disc, but if you're going to do this, also remember to get an acrylic backing plate for the polishing pad. If you use my affiliate code 53frogs, you'll also get 10% off of all of these accessories. Hi-Tech Slant Lap. Pretty cool kit.